Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome. We will give a few minutes here to everyone to get in and get settled in. Hopefully everyone is having a good day. Dave's in a cold and dark UK. Hey, Dave, you can come over here.
Yeah, well, when I say cold, it's all relative, mate. It's cold-ish here for us, not compared to you guys.
We're actually warming up. We're in double digits today.
Kevin's like in shorts in Florida.
We'll give it about one more minute or two, and then we'll get started.
15 Fahrenheit, that is not warm.
Yeah, we were -7 yesterday morning.
Ridiculous.
Broke a record low.
Why would anyone want to go outside in that?
I went to our office in Durham this week or last week, and I woke up and checked the weather and it said 25 degrees, and I thought someone had changed my phone to Celsius.
Yeah, Nick says it's 20 degrees in South Carolina. Yeah, I heard y'all got a lot of snow, so be careful, especially in the areas that don't usually get it to snow. We'll do about one more minute and then we'll get things rolling. Also, while we're waiting, make sure you stay to the end because we will have a giveaway, and that will be chosen by the Wheel of Names during the webinar. Make sure you stay to the end for that. And we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to one of our World of EUC webinars. This is one of our Elevate webinars by one of our founding partners, Nutanix. And today we are going to talk about AHV for EUC, what's new in 2025. And we are here today with two coworkers of mine, Dave Brett and Kevin Bacon. And they are going to give us all the goodness of what's going on with Nutanix in the EUC space. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. Oh, one more thing. Use the Q&A if you have any questions. I'll be monitoring that and I'll be answering those. I'll also stop them to see if they want to have any input as well. I'll be monitoring the chat as well. But without further ado, here are Kevin and Dave.
Thanks, Jorian. Much appreciated. Nice to be back again, albeit presenting for Nutanix. So my name's Dave Brett. As you can probably hear, I'm from the UK, little village called Liphook in the south of the UK. I'm a senior solutions architect at Nutanix, work in the same team as Jorian, aligned to end user computing and performance testing. Been there a little over 2 years now. I'm a current Citrix technology professional, have been for quite a few years now, can't remember the exact number, and an ex-Nutanix NTC, but had to renege that when I joined the company. Over to you, Kev.
Thanks, Dave. My name's Kevin Bacon. I'm with Nutanix as a portfolio architect covering EUC. I've been on the vendor side, customer facing with EUC for 17 years. I was at Citrix for almost 8 years, and now at Nutanix a little over 9 years. And really excited about this webinar. I've been, I always get different ideas, and we always want to bring you guys the latest content. But one thing I felt like we hadn't done for a while is just everything that's new, right? I wanted to show everyone that all the capabilities that we have over the last couple of years that we've brought to the market that I think a lot of people don't even know much about. So I wanted to make sure we educate everybody about these things. So some of the topics we're going to cover today, Flow Next Gen, everything since AOS 6.5, Nutanix files, especially the VDI Sync capability within that, some of the ecosystem updates for all of our ecosystem partners and colleagues, as well as digging into some of the Citrix PC plugin and some of the Prism Central enhancements around templates and everything else around that. And really, we want to get your feedback and what you think is the most important one for 2025 and for you and your organization. So we're going to have a poll at the end to see which of these updates you guys think are the best. So with that, let's hand it back over to Dave to talk about Nutanix Flow Network Security.
Thanks very much. Okay, so when you talk about security, and especially with the Nutanix Flow in mind, most people out there right now listening to this call probably already have existing security in place. Most customers that I've been into have a lot of these. So almost everyone's got the OS patching and app patching. There's a bunch of broker policy stuff, regardless of the broker you're using. You have firewalls and MFA on your identity platform. Some policies with GPP or GPO around the operating systems, as well as monitoring and reporting in place. And that does give you a pretty secure platform by design. So your infrastructure, virtual machines are generally covered by operating system policies, and your VMs are covered by brokering and OS policies, and all that's normally shipped off to login and monitoring, and the users come in via a firewall. But what if this happened? If a horrible person or a red team tried to get into your end user computing platform, chances are with the existing stuff you've got in place, because everyone on this call has got bomb-proof security, it wouldn't work. But then what they would do is they'd go find some old business app running on whatever, Windows 2000 or NT in your environment that still exists because Joe Bloggs, who wrote it, left a long time ago. They'd hop onto that. That would have a hook into directory services, and they would use that to bridge into your EUC environment. And that's called lateral movement. And this poses an issue with all EUC environments. And what Nutanix Flow will do at its core is help protect against this. So Nutanix Flow is not a new product. It's been there for a while. We did have a version 1, which is still there. You can still use that. But the guys in the engineering team have done amazing work on re-architecting the policy engine and redeveloping it. And it's been flagged like Nutanix Flow Next Gen. What it is, it's built on AOS 6.7 and up and Prism Central 23.3, and it's based on a network controller that runs within Prism Central. You have a choice whether to enable it or not, and it shifts your networking from Prism Element and puts the introspection up to Prism Central. And this allows you to use VLAN-backed networks, which are like they're almost identical to the traditional networks you have now, but it's using an advanced networking engine. So it allows Flow to inject itself into the packet flow and inspect the to and from traffic going to and from your VDAs or any of your infrastructure, or indeed any virtual machine that you have running on AHV right now. Over and above that, and this kind of ties into something we're going to talk about a bit later with the Prism Central plugin, it now, with Flow Next Gen, you have the ability to run virtual private clouds or VPCs in your on-premises clusters. What this allows you to do is generate a VPC on its own address space, bridge that onto your existing network with a VLAN-backed outbound connectivity, and then create what they're called overlay networks within the virtual private cloud. And it's really similar to how you would define networking requirements in any of the public clouds, whether that be in a VNet in Azure or a VPC in AWS. What we've done is brought that into the advanced networking on the Nutanix clusters on-prem. And it's given you a whole bunch of flexibility around, you could have the same address space, for example, for production and DR in an overlay network, and just switch the outbound IP addresses from one to the other in the event of a disaster. And then your security policies would remain the same. The other thing is, because it's being managed via Prism Central, what it allows you to do is move your security with your VMs, because the VMs are going to be tagged. And if you move a VM from, for example, one of your Nutanix clusters on premises to an AWS cluster that's managed by the same Prism Central, that security is going to move with it, which is super handy. It does have a new policy engine. The old version was a one-to-one. So you had one policy to a category of VMs. Now you can have a many-to-one, which is, I'll show you just now, has changed the flexibility. The last two things on this slide, right, it is enterprise ready. It's been tested at scale. There is RBAC in it. So you can give different people different rights within the network segmentation policies. So like, for example, your frontline guys could enable or disable certain policies to allow like low-level traffic into virtual machines running on your clusters. But if you want the more infrastructure pieces to be protected, you can then hide that behind RBAC. And one big change, which I personally think is great, is they've given you the ability to use a life cycle with the policy engine. So whereas before you just had create, which would put it in apply mode, and create, which puts it in monitor mode, and then apply, which enforces it. Now you've got create, modify, view, and delete operations on all of your policies. So you can create a policy. You don't have to apply it. You just build it on the side, leave it there. Once it's ready, you can then put it in monitor mode, which allows you to view the traffic and make sure you've covered everything. And then only when you're happy with that policy, you can then enforce it, which is going to reduce the risk of downtime when using Flow NextGen. And it's also has the capability to take your policy engine set and export that and then re-import it to another Prism Central, which is, you know, there's been a lot of change. If you've not looked at it for a while, it's well worth taking another look at. And like, this is ideal for a lot of certainly the infrastructure side for your EUC components, which is going to help protect it. A quick touch on how it's implemented before I hand it back to Kevin, sorry. So for example, here, you could have a policy for user-based access control, and that's assigned to any VMs that are categorized with the category user. And then on the other side, you have a couple of access layer virtual machines, and they're categorized access, and there's a policy access that applies to that. So that's a one-to-one mapping with the Flow NextGen policies applying security to a group of VMs individually. But what if you had a general set of security rules that were relevant to your entire business? Like, say you don't want your entire business to be able to access a certain IP range for an internet site or certain things internally. What you can now do is you can create a category general and tag the VMs with multiple categories now, and then apply this general policy to that category. And that means these access layer machines now have a security policy for access as well as general. And the user layer machines have that same general policy, but a specific one for the user, which has given the engine like a massive amount of flexibility in how you have like tier 1 security, tier 2, tier 3, and you layer up your security as you go up the application chain, which gives you an overall like easier to manage environment and more secure. And that's a real quick rundown on Flow NextGen.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I mean, to me, I think Flow now can go from the simplest things of like, hey, if there's all the virtual desktops are in the same pool, they should not be able to see each other, you know, yeah. And that's a real quick thing we can do, real simple, help prevent some of that lateral movement. But then we can also do now a full cloud-like model with VPCs and ACLs and have that portability of all of it is really, really interesting. And we're seeing that with anytime we do hybrid, you know, cloud and on-prem or cloud and colo together, it's using a lot of this next-gen Flow capability. So I want to talk about everything since AOS 6.5, because AOS 6.5 is our premier release. I mean, we've got customers running, you know, I think multiple customers running, you know, 4-figure numbers of nodes. I mean, on that software, and it's been one of our most impressive release and the largest thing. But we've had 6.6, 6.7, 6.8, and now 6.10, and then we're also have the next version of past 6.10 is out as well. And so the nice thing about 6.10 is it's our LTS release, right? So a lot of customers liked 6.5 because it was our LTS. And 6.6, 6.7, 6.8 were a lot of feature releases, right? A lot of new capabilities. And then 6.10, there's very few features in there. It's basically just a roll up of everything since 6.5. So you get 6.6, 6.7, 6.8 all into 6.10. So that's what we're having a lot of customers move to 6.10, and just a lot of new capabilities in there across all those releases and some of the other products. Some of the things for EUC that I wanted to highlight is Windows 11, right? The big thing there is VTPM. So we spent, like, in every release since 6.5, there's been an enhancement to VTPM, I think, in every release since then. So, you know, obviously, of course, making sure we support VTPM, but then making sure that you can do live, you know, migration across clusters for DR or image replication, but also then being able to do things like hot plug. So being able to do hot plugging of CPU and RAM with VTPM. So really just making sure all of our capabilities work really well with that, and also advanced processor compatibility. I couldn't fit that in one line, so that's what that stands for. So advanced processor compatibility builds on our existing capability of basically looking at the cluster, and if you've got multiple generations of Intel, right, or AMD, we'll make sure we mask the right features so that way the VMs can you know, all migrate within the cluster, right? And a lot of that's been automatic, and customers like that. The advanced processor compatibility just takes that to the next level, gives customers more optionality and functionality with that. Also allows Windows 10 to Windows 11 in-place upgrades for EUC. So if you want to do that, that's possible now with AHV. So on the resiliency, cross-cluster live migration is something that a lot of customers like to have. That can come into play with AHV if you want to have multiple clusters, but again, and be able to migrate not just within a cluster, but across clusters as well. We have that, and then near sync enhancements too, so we can go, you know, 1 minute type RPOs and anywhere across the country, across the globe. Really handy for both your persistent VMs as well as your files data and all that that goes with that, and having a really tight DR policy, very low RTO and RPO. On the management side, so all of the RBAC enhancements, right? So that really a lot of that is into Prism Central and all of the policies and the categories and all of that capability. So if you look at a lot of the legacy, the older Prism Elements technologies that we've had that are really solid, but the RBAC was not the best, right? A lot of times it was just, do you want admin rights or do you want read-only rights? And a lot of our enterprise customers have said, you know, they need that more fine-grained RBAC. That's there today. And then multi-cluster templates and provisioning. So this is, to me, is really, really great, especially if you're a customer that has, you know, multiple clusters, either prod and DR, or maybe just in one data center, you have a lot of users, so you need to have multiple clusters or multiple clusters for different purposes. This is great because you can now have one template image and have Nutanix automatically replicate those changes and deltas and versions, and then be able to do that provisioning. And that's really a lot of where the Prism Central integration that we now have with Citrix and some other partners, and Dave's going to talk about that towards the end, so we'll defer some of that to there. vGPU, a lot of big enhancements to vGPU. The first big thing is LCM. So now vGPU is part of our lifecycle management. So now when you're updating AHV, we will also update the grid driver, meaning the vGPU driver within the hypervisor. We'll also update that as part of the LCM process. And then the other thing is NVIDIA made some changes that broke some of the live migration in their newer builds after version 13 of Grid, and we've fixed that now in the latest AHV 10. And then security, secure snapshots and a security dashboard are some of the really ones that I think EUC customers really like. The secure snapshots come in handy because this just makes it so that if you're taking snapshots of either your persistent desktops or your base images, it means that you now need a workflow to delete them. So basically, you need multiple administrators to approve deleting them. So it makes it very much more difficult, so that if you've got some sort of malware that's going in and trying to delete snapshots underneath maybe a compromised admin account, they won't be able to do that unless they've got multiple compromised admin accounts or multiple bad actors in the environment, which makes it much more difficult for that to happen. And, you know, if you're going to have ransomware start encrypting your stuff, you want to make sure you've got really, really good snapshots. And of course, you want good backups as well. But if you've got those snapshots right on the same storage system, we can recover from that just that much more quickly. And the security dashboard is also a really nice capability as well. So what I want to mention is after 6.10, we now have AOS 7. And with AOS 7 comes AHV 10. We actually have a proper numbering for AHV. I know we never really had, we had kind of an internal numbering for AHV, but now we're publicly showing it as AHV 10, AOS 7. So that's our latest release. But I would, if you're not on 6.10 already, I would definitely look at getting your clusters to 6.10. And with that, let's send it back over to Dave.
Thanks, Kevin. Right, moving on. Let's have a chat about VDI Sync and what it is and how it can help. So let's start out with some of the profile replication options. So any EUC administrator has dealt with user profiles, had the pain of how to replicate the data around, what to do with it, where it goes, where it's best performant. And you really have, like with Nutanix, there's three options for replication. You have profile integrated. So this is stuff that's built into the profile solution. There are some app level replication options, but generally it's stuff like with CPM, it's replicate user stores or Citrix Profile Management. Those that didn't get that, and maybe with Microsoft FS Logics, you've got Cloud Cache or the equivalent in other technologies, but it's built into the solution and it will replicate data for you. There are pluses and minuses with all of these things, which I'm not going to dive into right now, but that's one option. The other option is Nutanix files. So within files, you have Smart DR and you have VDI Sync. There's a difference between how you replicate data, whether you're looking at storage level replication or share level replication. So for storage level, you might want to use something like a protection domain or a share level. You might use, for example, VDI Sync or Smart DR and or the VDI Sync policies that we're going to touch on in a minute. And then you've got third-party tooling. So I've personally used this out in a customer before where you want data. So you want data that's maybe outside the profile, or you don't want to use the built-in mechanisms, or maybe the built-in profile mechanisms are a little bit too aggressive, and you just need something to replicate that data every night. So you've got a good copy of it elsewhere, but you don't need active-active. Then that's where stuff like Here software or Resilio, or there's a product BVCKUP2, which I've used before. They're all pretty good. And they all look at source and destination. Some of them will do like differential copies and others will do straight copies. So if we move on, wrong one, and have a look at today's profile synchronization challenges that we certainly see. So if you take a typical setup like you'd have here, you'd have site A and site B, you'd have some brokers in both sites and then users connecting to each one. Generally, you'd have a file server in both locations with user profile data as well as home directory data. And then depending on what you're using to sync the data, you come into this issue where you're only looking at the data within the user profile. So you're looking at stuff like that's in app data documents, unless you're using profile redirection, but it's still stuff that's in the profile. More often than not, there's more than that needs protecting. It's certainly with regard to user profile data. It might sit outside of the user profile, which provides a challenge with the built-in software. And then you have to use a third-party tooling to cover that data that isn't covered by multiple profile locations or Cloud Cache or something like that. And that's where the issue is gonna rise itself, and that's where VDI Sync is going to help you. So with VDI Sync, what you can do is you can define multiple locations within the profile or the storage or share level storage system that you can replicate to different sites. And this does provide you with active-active availability for EUC profiles for users that use EUC profile data as well as other data within the environment. And some points to note on here. So it will provide active-active synchronization of the data. So the data is effectively live on both sites. However, when a user logs in, they connect to one of these sites, and then that will create a lock on that data. They can't then use the data in the other site until they've logged out of the primary site, and then that data is replicated, and then that lock is disappeared, which takes a minute or two. But it is, whilst the data is active, and you can connect to either side, it doesn't matter which side you connect to, you can only be connected to one side at a time right now. With 5.0 files, 5.0 is relevant to a single Prism Central. However, with 5.1, we now support availability zones and multiple Prism Central instances. So we can replicate data between clusters that are in different Prism Central availability zones, which is pretty cool. And also with 5.1, it's a differential sync. So it's looking at deltas instead of just taking the entire profile folder or profile directory and syncing all of it. So with 5.0, it's no delta. With 5.1, there is delta syncs on that. So it's worth looking at possibly upgrading to 5.1, or at least testing it with VDI Sync if you're using it. One other thing I would just like to say, I just want to highlight, right now, it's 2 sites only. So with any more, then you need to look at other options. That's something that will probably change in the future, but right now it's 2 sites only, but multiple Prism Central. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Kevin.
Just real quick, there's questions in the Q&A, but I've been taking care of them.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Yeah, please keep coming with the questions. That's great. We'll get to them as well if Jaren doesn't get to them already. Okay, ecosystem updates. So we've got a new slide here really showing all the ecosystem choice, all the players in the market that we work with, we have a relationship with, we talk to. And there's other customers, there's other vendors in the space too that, again, we're trying to bring on board. We're trying to build relationships with. And I'm curious too, as the community, is there other vendors you think not on here that we should be talking to, and why? Maybe throw that in the chat if you think there's anybody we should be taking a look at. I just had a conversation with a good vendor earlier today too that we're taking a look at. So, but here you can see, I mean, in the management analytics, endpoint OS, it's pretty self-explanatory. I think we've got a lot of good partners there. The broker side is really where the AHV piece comes in, right? Because we want to have that direct integration into Prism, especially now Prism Central with template management and all the great categories and replication and DR and everything else that we can do around there. And Citrix, of course, has been our biggest partner for a long time, and Omnissa has been the second most popular option running on Nutanix. So those are, of course, I think they're the 2 biggest in the market as well. We've got a lot of newer players and emerging players in this market. Of course, we used to have a product called Frame that's now part of Vision. They're still a big partner of ours. We've got a lot of joint opportunities together there. They have great support with AHV as well as all the native cloud options. And then we also spend a lot of time working with WorkSpot. I think if I'm not mistaken, WorkSpot actually now is the second one to have Prism Central support with our systems. And we've got HP Anywhere, Parallels, LeoStream, Aporto, ACOPS, a couple other smaller ones as well. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of what we're focused on, the ecosystem. We really want to make sure everyone has the right choice and make sure that we're working with all the players in the ecosystem. And
hey, quick question, real quick. There's a question here about solutions or ecosystem from Joe Cooper. Have you seen any interest in open source VDI solutions like OpenNebula or Rivada? I have not had any customers asked, but have you guys?
I haven't seen that, but I've seen people looking at everything. I think with the Citrix and Omnissa both went through big business changes in the last few years, and I think it's got a lot of people looking at everything is what I've seen. And that's why we on the Nutanix side, we're also trying to look out there, and we want to see what people are doing and what new technologies are out there and who we can work with. So yeah, if that's something you guys are interested in, let us know. I mean, I haven't seen customers specifically talk about those 2. But I wouldn't be surprised. And I've also heard people saying they don't want any broker. They're just going to go with RDP and just, so I've seen all sorts of things lately. Oh, Dave, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. More and more we're getting asked about options and what's out there, especially with everything that's going on out in the market at the minute. Similar to you, I've not been asked about those specifically, but people are certainly looking at every option that they have available to them. And that's kind of where it is, or that's what I'm seeing at least. Like nothing is off the table now, whereas before it would maybe be boiled down to a couple of vendors fairly quickly. Now there's a lot more openness to some of the not so bigger players.
For sure. I did want to highlight now I can't change the slide. Oh, sorry, my slide was really slow. Okay, sorry about that. I just had one slide here on Horizon 8 because there was some recent changes in terms of how we support Horizon 8 on Nutanix. So of course, Horizon is the second most popular option on Nutanix, and all of our customers have run vSphere on Nutanix. But we're seeing a lot of interest in running Nutanix AHV from our customers. And so we did actually have Omnissa update their documentation a few months ago to clarify that Horizon 8 supports manual pools on Nutanix AHV. And we actually had Dave Brett and Jerry and their whole team produced a solutions note for how to run Omnissa on AHV with manual pools. So if you want to do that today, we've got the automation guidance with Ansible and our REST APIs, performance validation, migration recommendations. So we have that available today. And I think there's a lot more that we'd like to do with Omnissa in the future, and we'll have to see where that goes. Anyways, with that, let's take it back over with Dave and talk about Citrix and the PC plugin.
All right. Thank you. So the Prism Central plugin. Before I get going on this, one thing I did want to just highlight, and Jarin and I spoke about this earlier in the week, is a lot of the stuff you're seeing up here today is based from and built on top of Prism Central, and there's a reason for that. We have various different versions of our API that's available, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the V4 APIs are all built on Prism Central, and all of the new technology that we're seeing coming through in the vendor integrations, they're all being done using the V4 APIs, which means it's all done and tagged with Prism Central. So we were discussing this earlier in the week. If you're not using it, it's probably worth looking at least getting it in and kicking the tires on it and just seeing how you would integrate that into your existing clusters, because a lot of the changes that are coming and a lot of the new features and bits and bobs are coming with those APIs. So you're going to need that endpoint there listening. Anyway, with that, there is a new plugin in Tech Preview for Citrix DAS, and it's native PC access. And it is literally as simple as what's up here on display to enable. So you do have to have Prism Central 23.3 running on AHV or later. And you just log into your DAS tenant and just put this toggle across, and that's it. And once you've got that, then it's going to enable you to be able to create hosting connections back to clusters fronted with Prism Central, which is a big win. If you think, not only does it allow you multi-cluster hosting connections within Citrix, you think back to when I was talking about the Nutanix Flow stuff right at the beginning. It allows you to utilize connections into like groups of machines that are on overlay networks or groups of machines that are in different networking like structures to what it normally would be, and it gives you a bit more flexibility. It runs with AHV templates, and this was something we also discussed, and it was very important to highlight. So it will use templates during the MCS provisioning mechanism, and it will use the active version for all operations. And that is important to highlight, and it's important to just remember, because when you're changing, there's different ways you could change like the image that's backing a any one of the delivery groups or machine catalogs, you might want to create a new template version. Then you need to set that active and then roll that into your deployed machines. But then if you go back, you need to set the prior version active, or you can redeploy another template, set that as the active version in that template, and then move across to that one. It is flexible, but you need to just be aware that you're always going to be using the active version of that template. And then the other thing, because it's using templates, it gives you a massive amount of flexibility with image replication. And this is also important because clusters under the same Prism Central are going to automatically have that template available to use for MCS catalog creation. And that sounds, it sounds fairly trivial, but it's quite a big win for a lot of customers. And certainly, if you're using, for example, NC2 in AWS, and you have an NC2, like you have a Nutanix cluster running up in NC2 on bare metal, and you have one located in one of your data centers, for example, in London, and then you've got another one in Florida, for example, and you do a template update in London, because they're managed via the same Prism Central, you can replicate that template across all three of those clusters. It doesn't matter whether it's sitting in a data center within the building that you own, or whether it's on a bare metal node in the public cloud. It's going to move that image around, which is, is a big win. And it's something that, like me coming from a background of managing images within MCS on Nutanix with various protection domains, making updates, replicating it around all over the place, and then promoting that about, that's a big win. And that's something that's going to save a lot of time. And then if we have a quick look at the workflow here, there are a couple of points I want to make after just running through this workflow. But what you would do, like firstly, you jump into DAS and you'd enable the Citrix integration with Nutanix Prism Central. Then you create the hosting connection. A point that I just want to highlight here, when you create the hosting connection, if you haven't replaced any of the certs, it will prompt you to trust that cert when you connect. Same as some of the other vendors have done in the past. I'm not in any way suggesting that you don't replace a certificate and you just automatically trust it. But if you want to, you can just tick a box and it will create that hosting connection. Then create your base image as you normally would. Convert that to a template and then create the catalog using the active template version. The updates are done using the active version as well as the rollback. So as I was talking about before, if you want to change the machine or the template version that is backing a machine catalog, you need to make sure you've set that to the active version before you do that. Right. So the plugin service account, the plugin is going to require full admin permissions. RBAC plugin service account is on the roadmap. The VLANs and overlay VPC networks, it does support both, as I mentioned earlier, which for me, as a bit of a networking nerd, is a great win. It's cool. It's something I'm quite looking forward to messing around with a bit more. But you've got to be careful with the VLAN network naming with multiple clusters. If you're naming like traditional VLANs, like VLAN 1, and then there's another cluster with VLAN 1, you're going to see a lot of the same VLANs listed. So just be careful in how you're naming them. So make sure you're using distinctive names when you're defining those VLANs. The Citrix provisioning wizard will come later. You can use scripting in the interim to get around that. And I believe Jarian's going to kill me for saying this, but he said he had a pretty much done script. Half done, was it, Jay? Maybe
Partially done, but yes.
Partially done.
Yeah, it's all working using V4 APIs though. But just to add into what Dave was saying, PVS fully works. It's the setup wizard portion that we have to get added to it.
And GA release is the target for migrating existing machine catalogs for MCS and persistent over to the new plugin version.
Can I add one more thing real quick?
Yeah, go for it, man.
If you are using our Nutanix Cloud Clusters on Azure plugin, you can still use that, or you can use this tech preview. But the main thing is, because that plugin is only for customers using our Azure offering, this tech preview will also work for for customers who are not using Azure. So if you're using DAS on-prem with Nutanix, you're fully able to use this tech preview. Make sure there's a link out there on the website for Citrix for the documentation. Make sure you give any feedback as well, because they're looking for feedback for it also.
Absolutely.
All right.
Cool. I think there's a question.
Actually, I'm going to ask this live real quick. There's a question here. When PC integration is enabled, this is from Matt, will old element hosting connection stop working, or does nothing take effect until a new PC hosting connection is created? So a couple things here. This plugin or this integration works side by side, right? So you can have both hosting connections for Prism Central and Prism Element. The only time this will actually take impact is not even the hosting connection. You can create the hosting connection and not do anything. It won't go into impact until you create a new machine catalog. So again, you can have both PC and PE side by side, both hosting connections. What matters here is when you create the catalogs. So when you create the catalogs, that's when you'll select your resources, being, Prism Element or PE, or Prism Central or PC. So that's how the workflow works. There's a migration tool that should be happening when this goes GA. And stay tuned for more stuff when we go GA with this later this year.
Mhm.
Oh, launch the poll time. Okay. Go ahead. Kevin, Dave?
Oh, did you launch the poll?
Yep, launching it now.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. Now it's it. So yeah, which of the following updates did you find the most impactful? I'm curious what you guys think there. Let's give it 5 more seconds. So the 5 topics, right? Flow next gen, everything since AOS 6.5, Nutanix files, VDI Sync, ecosystem updates, and the Citrix PC plugin. We had kind of a friendly bet between Dave and I which one was going to be the most impactful. So I think everything since AOS 6.5 should be the right answer, Dave. What do you think?
Yeah, you can have it. You can have that one.
The PC plugin is also pretty exciting. Just got to get that GA.
Yeah.
A lot of people are liking VDI Sync.
Oh, VDI Sync. Okay.
Yeah, it seems like VDI Sync is first right now. Flow next gen.
Let's hit the
ecosystem updates, everything since AOS 6.5, and then the PC plugin is rounding that out.
Okay, can you hit the final to show it?
Yep, I'll go ahead in the poll and share results. So you should be able to see the results.
All right. Looks like Dave won with the VDI Sync. That was a big one, especially the multi-PC. I like the multi-PC with VDI Sync. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Another question came from Brian Langston. This appears to allow template use by all PCs in a PC. Can protection policies do inter-PC for image distribution to clusters in a different PC than a source VM? So yeah, so just take that further. Today, the way that AHV templates works, if they're all under the same PC, it's automatically available to all clusters under the same PC. Now, currently, if you want to go across PCs with different availability zones, so say I have a PC in site A, a PC in site B, those are paired and set up as separate availability zones. You would then use protection policies to replicate that base VM to the other PCs, turn that into a template, and then those PCs would have that available to those clusters talking to that PC. So right now, it's a single PC, and then for cross PC, you have to replicate it, but that's today. But stay tuned for more and how we can further enhance this in the future. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the poll results.
Yeah, go for it.
Anything else from Dave and Kevin?
No, I think let's do the raffle.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take over then. So let me share. So we should be able to see my my slides now. And so upcoming events, we have Joe Cooper on February 19th, who's going to do 0 to non-persistent desktops in 60 minutes. This is a follow-up to his EUC World Independence session back in October in DC. So he's going to be doing that just like Ray did recently with the follow-up to his team session. Joe is doing a follow-up to his non-persistent session. So that's going to be next month, February 19th. And then speaking of EUC World, we have EUC World Amplify coming up in August 4th through 7th in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Registration fee, which we need to fix that slide, I guess, because that was already ended. But the super early bird registration fee of 100 is already over. So now it's gone to the regular early bird registration fee. So you can get that in now if you like. We also have a call for papers open as well. So you're thinking about speaking, we have session slots of 30 minutes or 60 minutes, depending on how long of a session that you want to do. This is based on the feedback from last year. We had our 15-minute lightning sessions where we've expanded those to 30 minutes. And then we had 45-minute full-length sessions, which we expanded to 60 minutes. So if you have a topic you want to present, call for papers is open. The QR code's here. Or you can go to worldofeuc.org on our events drop down. There's a landing page for it as well. So look forward to that. We've already got some good topic submissions. We've already got registrations rolling. But go ahead if you're interested to do that. Now for our prize giveaway based on the wheel of names, Jerry Johnson is the winner. Jen is going to reach out for your size to get you your World of EUC swag sent over to you so you can have that. So again, congratulations, Jerry Johnson, and look forward to Jen reaching out to you for your shirt size and information to get that over to you. That's it. I'll leave this up here for now, but thank you for attending. Any other questions or any other words from Dave or Kevin? We still have a few minutes here if you want to ask any more questions or anything else you want to relate to the attendees.
Just thanks for having us. And also, if there is anything that you see in and around the Nutanix world that you want presenting on, then reach out to Jarian and he'll get a hold of one of us and we can speak to either the engineers if you want something a bit more in depth, or we can get somebody on to talk about like any of the technology that we develop and ship. All you need to do is ask and we'll figure it out.
Actually, two things. The link for the EUC World landing page is in the chat, but since you guys are already part of World of EUC, if you are not a part of our Slack or Discord, there's info on the website on how to sign up for that. We have all of our community channels and vendor channels in there. There is a Nutanix EUC channel in there where myself, Dave's in there. I'm not sure if Kevin's on the Slack instance or not.
Yeah.
But I know Case is in there. James is on there. So all of our people from the EUC side, even our EUC PM, Joe is in there. So we answer questions there for the community a lot. If you have input or anything like that as well, please feel free. I can't even talk. To join the Slack instance or Discord. They're a bridge to each other. And make sure that you looked at the Nutanix EUC channel for those type of things. Also, Jen said if you register for EUC World today, reach out to her and she will give you the $100 discount for joining the webinar today. So here you go. So extension for those here on the webinar. The $100 discount is extended to you. Her email's in the chat, jen@worldofeuc.org. Or reach out to one of us directly via Slack DM as well. We can help with that and get you that email address over to you. Anything else, Dave or Kevin?
No,
I'm good. It was so great.
Okay. All right. Well, everyone have the great rest of the day. Thank you, Nutanix, for being a founding partner of World of EUC. Thank you, Dave and Kevin, for joining us today. And again, we'll look forward to talking more. And we continue the conversation inside of that Nutanix EUC channel in Slack or Discord.